reeked of sweat and bravado, a haze of testosterone that clung to the air like damp fog. Ezra Coleman, 28, stood in front of his locker, his fingers brushing the rainbow pin on his police uniform, a quiet badge of who he was. He'd worn it for a week now, and every day the snickers grew louder. "Nice pin, Coleman," Officer Brady sneered, leaning against a locker with a smirk that could curdle milk. "What's next? Glitter on your holster?" The room erupted in laughter, a chorus of jeers from men who thrived on tearing others down. Ezra's jaw tightened, but he kept his eyes on his gear, his heart pounding like a drum in a war zone. He joined the Seattle Police Department to make a difference, to bridge the gap between his community and the badge. Growing up black in a city that preached progress but often forgot its promises, he knew what it was to feel like an outsider. The rainbow pin wasn't just a symbol, it was a declaration. But here, among his so-called brothers in blue, it felt like a target. "Leave him alone, Brady." A voice cut through, low and steady. It was Officer Lena Martinez, 35, her dark eyes flashing as she adjusted her duty belt. "You got a problem with pride. Take it up with the 21st century." The room quieted, but Brady's smirk didn't fade. He muttered something under his breath, and Ezra caught the word, "freak." Stung, but he'd heard worse. He always had. Ezra slipped out of the station into the cool September air, the Seattle skyline glowing under a bruised purple sky. He walked to California Anderson Park, where he was meeting Lucas, his partner of 2 years. Lucas Morales, 30, was everything Ezra wasn't. Bold, unapologetic, with a laugh that could light up a room. A graphic designer with a knack for turning blank canvases into stories. Lucas had a way of making Ezra feel like he could breathe again. They met by the park's fountain, its water catching the last rays of sunlight. Lucas wore a denim jacket, his dark hair tousled, and when he saw Ezra, his face broke into a grin that erased the weight of the day. "You look like you need a coffee, or maybe a whiskey," Lucas teased, pulling Ezra into a hug. The warmth of his embrace was a shield, but Ezra couldn't shake the locker room's venom. "They're still giving me shit about the pin," Ezra admitted, his voice low as they sat on a bench beneath a canopy of cherry blossoms. "Brady called me a freak today, in front of everyone." Lucas's eyes darkened, his hand tightening around Ezra's. "They're idiots," he said fiercely. "You're out here saving lives, and they're hung up on a piece of metal? Screw them." Ezra wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at his edges. Being out as a gay black cop in a precinct that worshipped machismo was like walking a tightrope over a pit of wolves. He loved Lucas, loved the life they were building, but the constant jabs at the station made him question how long he could keep this up. Their moment was interrupted by a sharp whistle. A group of teens skateboard past, one of them shouting, "Nice pin, officer." The tone wasn't mocking. It was genuine, almost admiring. Ezra's lips twitched into a small smile, and Lucas nudged him. "See? Not everyone's an asshole." For the first time that day, Ezra laughed, the sound soft but real. As they walked hand in hand through the park, the city humming around them, Ezra felt a flicker of hope. But hope was fragile, and he knew tomorrow would bring more of the same. More sneers, more whispers. What he didn't know was that tomorrow would also bring a reckoning, one that would shake the station to its core. The next morning, Ezra arrived at the precinct early, hoping to avoid the usual crowd. The briefing room was half empty, the smell of burnt coffee hanging in the air. He took his seat, the rainbow pin glinting under the fluorescent lights. Captain Gwynn, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, ran through the day's assignments with her usual precision. Ezra was paired with Brady for patrol, a pairing that felt like a cosmic joke. "Try not to get us killed out there, Rainbow," Brady muttered as they headed to their cruiser. Ezra ignored him, focusing on the rhythm of the city outside, the honk of horns, the chatter of pedestrians. They patrolled Capitol Hill, a neighborhood alive with color and defiance, where pride flags hung from every other storefront. It was Ezra's favorite beat, a place where he felt less like an anomaly. Their first call was a disturbance at a coffee shop. A man in his 40s, disheveled and shouting, was causing a scene. Ezra approached calmly, his voice steady as he de-escalated the situation. Brady stood back, arms crossed, watching with a mix of boredom and disdain. "You're too soft, Coleman," he said as they left, the man now calm and apologetic. "This job's gonna eat you alive." Ezra didn't respond. He'd learned long ago that arguing with Brady was like wrestling a pig in mud. You both got dirty, and the pig enjoyed it. But as they drove through the streets, Ezra's mind wandered to Lucas, to the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, to the promise they'd made to build a life together, no matter what. That promise was his anchor, but it was starting to feel like it might not be enough. Back at the station, the locker room was a minefield. Brady and his cronies were at it again, their voices loud and mocking. "Hey, Coleman, you going to the Pride Parade this weekend? Gonna wear that pin on a float?" The laughter was cruel, and Ezra felt his chest tighten. He wanted to fight back, to tell them to go to hell, but the weight of their numbers silenced him. Then the door swung open, and a man stepped in. He was in his 60s, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from years of hard choices. His presence filled the room, and the laughter died instantly. "Which one of you is picking on my son?" he said, his voice a low growl that sent a chill through the air. Ezra froze. The man was his father, Marcus Coleman, a retired Special Forces veteran who'd spent decades in the shadows of war. Marcus had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke, the world listened. And right now, his eyes were locked on Brady. The locker room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Marcus Coleman stood like a monument, his weathered hands clenched at his sides, his gaze pinning Brady to the spot. Ezra's heart raced. He hadn't seen his father in months, not since their last awkward dinner where they tiptoed around the subject of his coming out. "Who the hell are you?" Brady finally managed, his bravado faltering under Marcus's stare. The other officers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the retired soldier and their ringleader. "I'm the man who raised Ezra," Marcus said, stepping closer. "And I'm the man who'll make you regret opening your mouth if you don't show him some damn respect." His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a lifetime spent facing down threats far worse than a loudmouth cop. Ezra stepped forward, his voice shaky but firm. "Dad, it's okay. I can handle this." But Marcus raised a hand, silencing him. "No, son. You've been handling it too long. These boys need a lesson in what it means to be a man." Brady scoffed, but it was a weak sound, like air leaking from a punctured tire. "We're just messing around, old man. It's locker room talk." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Messing around doesn't make a man feel small. You want to talk tough? Try it with me." The room was a powder keg, and Ezra could feel the spark about to ignite. He grabbed his father's arm, pulling him toward the door. "Let's go, Dad. They're not worth it." Marcus didn't budge at first, his gaze still locked on Brady, but finally he followed Ezra out into the hallway. Outside, the precinct buzzed with its usual chaos. Phones ringing, officers hustling past. Ezra led Marcus to a quiet corner near the vending machines. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a mix of gratitude and confusion. Marcus sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. "Your mom called me. Said you've been coming home looking like the world's chewing you up. I had to see for myself." Ezra's throat tightened. He hadn't told his mother about the harassment, but she always had a way of knowing when he was hurting. "It's just talk, Dad. I can deal with it." Marcus shook his head. "Talk like that festers, Ezra. I didn't spend 30 years fighting for freedom just to watch my son get torn down for being who he is." The words hit Ezra like a punch. Marcus had been distant since Ezra came out, their conversations stilted, full of unspoken questions. But now, here he was, standing up for him in a way Ezra hadn't expected. "I didn't think you'd care this much," Ezra admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's face softened, a rare crack in his stoic armor. "You're my son," he said simply. "I don't care who you love. I care that you're strong enough to face the world and still be you." That evening, Ezra and Lucas sat in their small apartment in Fremont, the city's eclectic heart. The space was warm, filled with Lucas's art, bright canvases that clashed beautifully with the thrift store furniture. Lucas was cooking, the smell of garlic and cumin wafting from the kitchen as he chopped vegetables with a precision that rivaled Ezra's police training. "So, your dad just walked in like some kind of action hero?" Lucas asked, his eyes wide with amusement. Ezra nodded, still processing the day. "Yeah, I thought he was gonna deck Brady. Never seen the guy look so scared." Lucas laughed, sliding a plate of tacos across the counter. "I'd pay to see that. Your dad's a badass." Ezra smiled, but it faded quickly. "He is. But I don't know if this changes anything at the station. Brady's not gonna stop, and the others will just follow his lead." Lucas set down his knife and walked over, wrapping his arms around Ezra from behind. "You don't have to fight this alone, you know? You've got me, your mom, your dad. Hell, half the neighborhood would probably rally for you if you asked." Ezra leaned into him, the weight of the day easing slightly. "I just want to do my job, Lucas. I want to be a good cop, not a punching bag." "Then keep being you," Lucas said, his voice fierce. "Wear that pin. Love who you love. They'll get tired of barking when they see it doesn't shake you." The next day, the precinct was quieter, but the tension lingered like smoke. Brady kept his distance, but his glares were sharp enough to cut glass. Ezra focused on his work, diving into reports and patrols with a determination that bordered on obsession. He wanted to prove he belonged not just to them but to himself. On patrol, he and Lena responded to a call about a missing teenager in Belltown. The kid, Jamie, was 16, non-binary, with a shock of dyed blue hair and a skateboard tucked under their arm. They'd run away after a fight with their parents, and Ezra found them sitting on a curb, staring at the pavement like it held all the answers. "Hey, Jamie," Ezra said, crouching to their level. "You okay?" Jamie shrugged, their eyes wary. "My parents don't get me. They keep saying I'm confused, that I need to pick a side." Ezra's heart ached. He knew that feeling, the weight of being told who you should be. He pointed to his rainbow pin. "I get it. Took me a long time to figure out who I am, too. But you don't have to do it alone." Jamie's eyes flicked to the pin, then back to Ezra. "You're like me?" they asked, voice small. Ezra nodded. "Yeah, and I'm here to help." By the time they got Jamie back to their parents with a promise to talk things out, Ezra felt a spark of purpose reignite. This was why he joined the force, to make a difference, one person at a time. But back at the station, the air was different. Brady and his crew were huddled in a corner, their voices low but sharp. Ezra caught fragments. His name, his father's name, words like stunt and disrespect. He ignored them, but Lena pulled him aside. "Watch your back," she whispered. "Brady's pissed, and he's not the type to let things go." Ezra nodded, his stomach twisting. He knew Lena was right. Brady wasn't just a bully, he was a man with a grudge, and grudges in a place like this could turn dangerous. The precinct felt like a pressure cooker, every glance and whisper adding to the heat. Ezra kept his head down, focusing on paperwork, but he could feel Brady's eyes boring into him from across the room. The confrontation with Marcus had shifted something. Brady's taunts were quieter now, but they were laced with a new edge, a promise of retaliation. Ezra's phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Dinner tonight? I'm thinking pizza and a walk by the Sound." The thought of Lucas's easy smile and the salt air of Puget Sound was a lifeline. But Ezra's reply was cut short by Captain Wen's voice. "Coleman, Brady, my office. Now." The captain's office was sparse, a testament to her no-frills approach. She sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable. "I heard about yesterday," she said, her eyes flicking between them. "Brady, you've got a problem with Coleman's pin, you file a formal complaint. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut. This isn't a frat house." Brady's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Ezra stayed silent, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Gwyn turned to him. "Coleman, you're a good cop. Don't let this crap distract you. But if it escalates, I need to know." Ezra nodded, but as they left the office, Brady's shoulder brushed against his. A deliberate, petty shove. The rest of the day was a blur of patrols and paperwork, but the tension followed Ezra like a shadow. When he finally left the station, the sky was a deep indigo, the city alive with the hum of nightlife. He met Lucas at a pizza joint in Pioneer Square, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and music that made you feel like you were in a movie. Lucas was already there, a slice of pepperoni in hand, his grin infectious. "You look like you've been through a war," he said, sliding a plate toward Ezra. "Eat, then tell me everything." Ezra managed to smile, but as he recounted the day, Brady's glares, Nguyen's warning, the undercurrent of hostility, his appetite faded. "They're not gonna stop Lucas," he said, his voice low. "I thought I could handle it, but it's like they're waiting for me to break." Lucas reached across the table, his hand covering Ezra's. "You're stronger than them, and you've got people in your corner. Don't forget that." They walked along the waterfront after dinner, the lights of the ferries dancing on the water. Lucas stopped by a railing, pulling Ezra close. "You know what I love about you?" he said, his voice soft but fierce. "You don't give up, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. You keep going." Ezra's eyes stung, and he buried his face in Lucas's shoulder, the world fading to just the two of them. The next morning, Ezra arrived at the precinct to find a small crowd gathered in the parking lot. A rainbow flag had been raised on the flagpole overnight, bold and unapologetic. Whispers rippled through the officers, some amused, some angry. Brady's voice cut through the chatter. "Who the hell did this? Coleman, this you're doing?" Ezra shook his head, genuinely surprised. "Wasn't me." But he couldn't hide the spark of pride in his chest. Someone had taken a stand, and it felt like a small victory. Lena caught his eye, a knowing smirk on her face, and Ezra wondered if she had something to do with it. The flag stayed up all day, a silent challenge to the precinct's old guard. But by evening, it was gone, replaced with a crumpled note taped to the pole. "Keep your agenda out of our house." Ezra's stomach sank. This wasn't just Brady anymore. This was a message, a line drawn in the sand. He told Lucas about it that night, his voice heavy with frustration. They were curled up on their couch, a movie playing in the background, but Ezra couldn't focus. "It's like I'm fighting a war I didn't sign up for," he said. Lucas pulled him closer, his voice steady. "You're not fighting alone, and you're not fighting for nothing. Every day you show up, you're changing things, even if they can't see it yet." The next day, Ezra was on patrol with Lena when they got a call about a protest downtown. A group of activists had gathered outside City Hall, demanding better protections for queer youth. The crowd was peaceful but loud, rainbow flags waving like a sea of color. Ezra and Lena were tasked with keeping the peace, but as they arrived, Ezra's heart sank. Brady and his crew were there too, their expressions hard. The protest was led by a young woman named Aisha, 24, her voice fierce as she spoke about the need for safe spaces. Ezra recognized her from a community event. He'd helped her brother out of a bad situation a year ago. She caught his eye and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his rainbow pin. But the mood shifted when a counter-protester, a burly man with a sign full of hate, started shouting slurs. Brady and his friends stood back, doing nothing, their smirks barely hidden. Ezra stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, you need to lower your sign and keep it civil." The man spat at his feet, and Ezra felt the old anger flare, but he held his ground. Lena was at his side in an instant, her presence a quiet strength. Together, they escorted the man away, the crowd cheering softly. Aisha approached Ezra afterward, her eyes bright. "Thanks, officer. Not everyone would have done that." Ezra nodded, his throat tight. "Just doing my job." But back at the precinct, Brady was waiting. "You're making us look soft out there, Coleman," he hissed. "This isn't your personal crusade." Ezra met his gaze, his voice steady. "It's not a crusade. It's about doing what's right." Brady's eyes narrowed, and Ezra knew this was far from over. The precinct was a pressure cooker, and Ezra felt the heat rising. Brady's hostility had spread like a virus, infecting others who'd once stayed neutral. Whispers followed Ezra through the halls, and his rainbow pin seemed to burn brighter under their stares. He kept his head high, but each day chipped away at his resolve. One evening, as he and Lucas walked through Pike Place Market, the air thick with the smell of fish and flowers, Ezra's phone buzzed. It was a photo from an unknown number, a picture of his locker, the rainbow pin defaced with a crude marker. The message read, "Quit while you're ahead." Lucas's face darkened as he saw it. "This is harassment, Ezra. You need to report it." Ezra shook his head, his jaw tight. "If I report it, they'll say I'm weak. I can't give them that." Lucas stopped walking, his eyes blazing. "You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. But you don't have to take this alone." Ezra wanted to argue, but Lucas's hand on his cheek silenced him. "We're a team, okay? Let me be there for you." That night, Ezra couldn't sleep. The photo of his defaced pin haunted him, a symbol of how far things had gone. He thought of his father's words, of Lucas's unwavering support, of the kid he'd helped at the protest. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for everyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. The next morning, Ezra arrived at the precinct to find his locker cleaned, the marker scrubbed away. A note was taped to it, written in Lena's neat handwriting. "You've got more allies than you think." It was a small gesture, but it felt like a lifeline. He tucked the note into his pocket, his resolve hardening. But the day took a darker turn. During a routine patrol, Ezra and Brady responded to a domestic disturbance in a quiet neighborhood. The call was messy. A couple in their 30s, both drunk, screaming at each other in a cluttered apartment. Ezra tried to de-escalate, his voice calm as he spoke to the woman. But Brady was aggressive, barking orders at the man. "Back off, Brady," Ezra said, his tone sharp. "You're making this worse." Brady turned on him, his face red. "Don't tell me how to do my job, Coleman. You're the one who doesn't belong here." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the room was silent except for the couple's shaky breaths. They resolved the call, but the drive back was a war zone of silence. When they reached the precinct, Brady stormed off, leaving Ezra to file the report alone. As he typed, Captain Gwynn appeared at his desk. "I got a complaint about you," she said, her voice neutral. "Brady says you undermined him on that call. Says you're not a team player." Ezra's heart sank, but he met her gaze. "I was trying to keep things calm, ma'am." Brady was escalating. Gwynn studied him for a long moment. "I believe you, but this is a problem, Coleman. You two need to sort it out, or I'm pulling you off patrol together." That evening, Ezra's parents invited him and Lucas to dinner at their home in West Seattle. The house was warm, filled with the smell of his mother's cooking. Roast chicken and collard greens, a taste of home. Marcus was quieter than usual, his eyes lingering on Ezra's pin. Ezra's mother, Diane, 58, filled the silence with stories of her garden and her book club, but the tension was palpable. After dinner, Marcus pulled Ezra aside. "I heard about the flag," he said, his voice gruff. "And the note. You okay?" Ezra nodded, but the weight of the week spilled out. "It's getting worse, Dad. I don't know how much longer I can do this." Marcus's face hardened, but his voice was soft. "When I was in the service, I saw men break under less. You're stronger than that, Ezra. But you don't have to carry it all yourself." He hesitated, then added, "I wasn't always there for you, not the way I should have been. But I'm here now." Ezra's eyes burned, and he hugged his father, the embrace fierce and grounding. For the first time in years, he felt like they were on the same side. The next day, the precinct was buzzing with rumors. Someone had leaked the photo of Ezra's defaced locker to a local news blog, and the story was gaining traction online. By midday, a small group of activists, including Aisha from the protest, gathered outside the station, holding signs that read "Support our queer cops and end hate in the SPD." Ezra watched from a window, his chest tight with a mix of pride and fear. Lena joined him, her expression grim. "This could go either way," she said. "People are talking, and not all of it's good." Ezra nodded, his mind racing. The attention was a double-edged sword. It could force change, or it could make him a bigger target. That afternoon, Captain Gwynn called a precinct-wide meeting. The room was packed, the air thick with anticipation. "We're better than this," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "This department stands for justice, not division. If anyone here can't handle that, there's the door." Her words were met with silence, but Ezra felt a shift. Not everyone was on his side, but the tide was turning. As the meeting ended, Lena clapped him on the shoulder. "You're not alone, Coleman. Remember that." The precinct was a battleground of whispers and stares, but Ezra felt a new strength in his step. The activists outside had grown in number, their signs a rainbow of defiance against the gray Seattle sky. The news blog story had gone viral, and by evening, it was trending on social media with hashtags like Rainbow Cop and Justice for Ezra. The attention was overwhelming, but it lit a fire in Ezra's heart. Brady, however, was a storm cloud. He cornered Ezra in the hallway, his voice low and venomous. "You think you're some kind of hero now? This is a police station, not a pride parade." Ezra met his gaze, his voice steady. "I'm just doing my job, Brady. Maybe you should try it sometime." Brady's face twisted, but before he could respond, Lena appeared, her presence a quiet warning. "Back off, Brady," she said. "You're digging your own grave." Brady stormed off, but Ezra knew this wasn't the end. Men like Brady didn't back down, they doubled down. That night, Ezra and Lucas attended a community vigil in California Anderson Park, organized by Aisha and other activists. The park was alive with candlelight, the air filled with soft music and voices raised in solidarity. Ezra wore his uniform, the rainbow pin gleaming, and for the first time he felt like it belonged there. Aisha took the microphone, her voice clear and powerful. "We're here for Officer Ezra Coleman, who's been fighting for us while facing hate in his own house. He's proof that courage isn't just a badge. It's a heart that keeps beating." The crowd cheered, and Lucas squeezed Ezra's hand, his eyes shining with pride. Marcus and Diane were there, too, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. When Ezra caught his father's eye, Marcus gave a small nod, a gesture that spoke volumes. Diane hugged Ezra tightly, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." For the first time in years, Ezra felt whole, like every piece of himself. Black, gay, cop, son. Fit together. But the moment was shattered by a shout. A group of counter-protesters had gathered, their signs ugly with hate. Ezra's training kicked in, and he moved to the front, his voice calm but firm as he addressed them. "This is a peaceful event. You're free to speak, but you won't disrupt this." The crowd behind him roared in support, and the counter-protesters backed off, outnumbered and outmatched. The next day, the precinct was different. The rainbow flag was back on the flagpole, this time with Captain Nguyen's approval. She called Ezra into her office, her expression softer than usual. "You've started something, Coleman," she said. "I'm getting calls from the mayor's office, from community leaders. They want to work with us, with you, to make this department better." Ezra nodded, his throat tight. "I just want to do my job, ma'am. But I want to do it as me." Nguyen smiled, a rare crack in her armor. "Then keep doing it. You've got more support than you know." Later, in the locker room, Ezra found a small rainbow sticker on his locker, no note attached. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Brady was nowhere to be seen. Word was he'd been reassigned to desk duty pending an investigation into the locker defacement. It wasn't justice, not yet, but it was progress. Months later, Ezra stood at the front of a community meeting in Capitol Hill, Lucas at his side. The room was packed with officers, activists, and residents, all there to discuss new training programs for inclusivity in the SPD. Ezra spoke about his journey, his voice steady but raw. "I didn't choose this fight," he said, "but I chose to stay. Because every kid like Jamie, every person who feels like they don't belong, deserves to know someone's fighting for them." The room erupted in applause, and Lucas leaned over, whispering, "You're my hero." Ezra smiled, his heart full. He thought of his father's words, of Lena's quiet strength, of the community that had rallied around him. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Change never was, but he wasn't alone. As they left the meeting, hand in hand, the Seattle skyline glowed under a starry sky. The rainbow pin on Ezra's chest caught the light, a small beacon of hope in a world that was slowly, stubbornly, learning to love better.